With more than 100 years of experience, Mitas is one of Europe's leading motorcycle tyre brands. Whether you ride on the trails, enduro, on the road or on adventures, Mitas have the tyres for you. If they're good enough for the likes of Chris Birch and Paul Tarris, they're good enough for me and our Noel. For more information, go to mitas-moto.com. Go the distance with Mitas tyres.
Hello and welcome to the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast with me, Clive Barber, and my good mate, Noel Tom. For the days when you can't ride your bike, there's always the Trail and Adventure Motorbike Podcast.
All right, gang, welcome back. This is an episode I have been really excited about recording. Today, we're talking to Alan Boyter from Vendetta Racing, based in the UAE. Vendetta Racing do all sorts of things from track racing and riding to entering the Dakar and lots of other rallies as well. This week, we're going to be focusing on land speed records and Alan's attempt to beat a 200-mile record on the Bonneville Salt Flats. This is something that's absolutely intrigued me since I was a kid, and it's completely left me wanting to have a go too. I'm joined this week by biker Ed, who is a bike designer and builder, and he's going to ask all the questions that I couldn't even begin to think of. Yeah, let's get on with it. It's a cracking episode. You're going to enjoy this one. Thanks, Alan, and thanks, Ed. He's the second fastest rider I know, possibly the third fastest rider I know now. You might be the fastest.
I'm sure there's plenty faster than me.
Ed's got a bit of an engineering background, understands things technical that I don't, and you two can talk amongst yourselves.
Clive sent out your details and I had a look at the website and said, yes, absolutely keen. I've got so many engineering type questions around what these guys have done. It looks insane.
I've been really excited about this episode because you've been doing some great stuff on YouTube. You seem to have upped your game on YouTube recently.
Yeah, I'm trying to make an effort with it. Last year, we had a videographer follow us through Bonneville, and he said, why don't you do all this on YouTube? You're doing all the work in your garage anyway. And I was like, yeah, but then I just can't be bothered. So he gave me a little bit of pointers here and there. And it's like, okay, fine, I'll make a concerted effort to do it. So I'm trying to put a video out once a week at the moment.
I just came across you because obviously I'm always looking at motorbike stuff anyway, and something cropped up and I'm thinking, this is awesome. I've been obsessed with Speedway and land speed records and motorbikes in general for as long as I can remember. So yeah, I just thought it'd be great to talk to you and find out a bit more about it.
It's been a fun project, I must admit. It's something that was supposed to be a one-off just for a bit of a laugh. It's now turning into an obsession.
I can imagine, because you got so close, didn't you, this year to not blowing engines up and getting a record. But
I mean, we did officially break it. You have to back it up with a second run, but we blew the motor in the first run, so that's all she wrote.
That's the second year you've been out with that bike, isn't it?
We built it to go out to the FIM event last year. If you like, I'll give you the whole story of how we got started.
Right, listen, let's get into it. So I am really, really delighted. I'm very, very excited about this one. Have been for some time now, to welcome Alan Boyter from Vendetta Racing, UAE. And Alan is going to tell us all about Vendetta Racing and, more importantly, about land speed records and his recent attempts. I feel like a schoolboy at the moment. I love this kind of thing. So I've got lots of questions to ask. And I am also really delighted to welcome my mate Ed, biker Ed. You all know Ed. Ed is here as well in his technical capacity as a motorcycle engineer to ask all the difficult questions I wouldn't even understand.
You're setting me up for failure there, Clive.
Inevitably, yeah. Give it your best shot, son. You'll be all right.
I'll try my best.
Alan, tell us a little bit about yourself and your biking history and how you come to be in Dubai, or in the UAE of all places.
I grew up around bikes, went to cars for a little while when I was 17 because it was more accessible, and had the usual mother, I'll throw you out of the house if you get a bike sort of thing. I got my first bike early 20s, did like everybody else does in the UK, ran the Highland roads of Scotland, weekends, West Coast trips, etc., a couple of European trips, but moved to Dubai for work in 2006. It was only supposed to be an 18-month contract. I'm still here since 2006. But when I moved here, the roads here in the UAE are not the best. They've got better over the years, but they're not bike-friendly. And the roads themselves, they're big, they're long, they're straight. They're not exactly exciting for road stuff. I ended up going racing instead. We have 2 racetracks here, literally on our doorstep, Dubai Autodrome and Yas Marina. So I started racing bikes in 2007, and that grew arms and legs. Then we started racing off-road, and we did international rallies. One thing led to another, and now we're doing land speed racing.
What is Vendetta Racing? Is it a fairly loose organisation of you and your mates, or is there something a little bit more solid behind it?
It started off just a couple of mates who wanted to make a name in the racing community to attract sponsors. For those who have ever done any kind of racing, be it on road or on track, having some kudos behind you and a name to yourself does help attract more sponsors. So it started from there, and then we started endurance racing in the UK, so that added kudos to it. We did Isle of Man in 2010 and 2012, so that kind of put us on the map. And then it started to get more professional. We started racing off-road, predominantly the Dubai Baja, the Abu Dhabi Desert Challenge, both of which are international events. I mean, now the Desert Challenge is part of the International Rally Championship, which includes Dakar. So we've kind of slowly slipped into a bunch of mates having a bit of fun on bikes and doing a bit of racing to doing international events every year. We've done Dakar 3 times. We've done the World Championship once, the whole World Championship in all the countries. And now we find ourselves doing land speed racing. It is predominantly a bunch of mates having fun, but we do take it seriously.
You've got quite a cast of characters, though. I mean, certainly from the Dakar, which, you know, these guys get a mention every year at Break Magazine's Dakar event just after Christmas. You've got the Davids, Mabs and McBride, Oren Kelly, and more recently Tom Childs racing as well. Are these guys all just happen to be Dubai-based racers?
Dave Mabs used to race cars and off-road. Dave McBride's been racing bikes here since the 80s. He actually grew up here. He's won a bunch of championships, so he lives and breathes the desert on 2 wheels. It was actually myself and Dave Mabs that started racing the international stuff in 2013 together. We started off on 2 wheels. They continued on with it. I ended up kind of going back more to the track stuff. Oren was actually born and raised in Dubai as well. Tom is much like myself. He's been out here for years. Just like-minded people who want to do the same thing.
You have an engineering bent. Is that something you do for a living as well?
I've been in the oil field business for 30 years now. And my current role is project managing offshore and marine construction projects. Although, yes, I do engineering my day-to-day stuff. So there is a bit of crossover into the passion I have with racing as well, I guess.
Your land speed record attempts, you started designing and building the bike back in 22?
There's a bike film festival here in Dubai, and we'd gone to watch one evening. They do it every year. And one of the headline films was this Swiss team who'd built a Ducati-powered bike to go break a record at Bonneville. And it was a great documentary, but the team was from a little Swiss village. The local butcher was going to be the guy who was riding it, and he had to get a license. And they kind of went through the trials and tribulations of them going to Bonneville and having issues on the salt and broken engines, but they did end up breaking the record. And I'm watching this, and I'm nudging my wife, and she's like, "What?" I was like, "Well, the engine they've got on that is a Ducati 998, 999 engine." She's like, "Yeah." So I've got one lying on the garage floor because I've built more than a couple of Ducati projects in the past. So the 4 kilometers it took to drive from where the film festival was to home, we'd already kind of decided that, yeah, that looks a bit of fun. Let's give that a crack. And then it started, yeah. So looking at designs and what would work best. Do you take something that's already looking like a bike and modify it? Do you start from a blank sheet of paper? And we weren't in any rush. So the land speed bike we built is 3.6 meters long.
You talk about whether you start with a kind of traditional bike and modify it, but you ended up completely detached from anything that looks like a normal motorcycle. It's so bespoke.
Yeah. And there was reasons to it. There was method to the madness. The class that these guys are running, we want to be in the same class. So it was 1000cc, 2-cylinder, non-naturally aspirated, so you can use turbo supercharged nitrous, and non-streamlined, which meant it was a naked bike. You weren't allowed any fairings. That was the key point, is the no fairings part. So if you're going to have to run it with no wind protection, you really want to have your frontal area as small as possible. So if you could have the front wheel in front of you, and you tucked in behind the front wheel, and then the engine tucked in behind you, you've got the smallest possible frontal area. But it does mean you've got a very, very long bike. But for Bonneville, it doesn't really matter. Nobody cares. There's no limits on how long it can be. I've got pictures. I laid it out the workshop floor here. the engine I had, there was an old rear wheel. I think it was a motocross front tire that I had. And I did a very rough frame with electrical conduit tubing that figured out the length of the bike, where my legs were going to be, where my head was going to be. Okay, this is how long it needs to be.
I find it very interesting, the class being naked or no bodywork, because obviously every bike has some kind of bodywork. Like you have some side panels on the bike, but I don't know how the regulations define it. I did notice when I watched this is a really nerdy thing. I watched one of your earlier videos and you had that little carbon fiber dash that goes over the box on the front of the bike. And I noticed after you'd been through scrutineering that little dash cover was removed. I guess you took it to scrutineering and they went, nope, you're not having that.
We got away with it last year, I'm not going to lie. And I knew it was an issue when I built it last year. I thought, you know what, I'm going to try my luck. And they picked it up on this year. And the guy said that you can run it if you want. But if you go into impound, if you've qualified for reckon, you go into impound and the second set of eyes go in and have a look at it, they might pull you and you don't get your record. So, yeah, it's all fair. And you know what? I didn't feel the difference. I mean, we made a lot of modifications from the bike from last year to this year, but I was surprised how little difference I thought it made.
It's probably worthwhile we're talking about the classifications. There seems to be two sort of splits between the design of the bike and then the engine size of the bike. Then you've talked about cylinders and the fuel you use as well. There is a streamlining class, which presumably the full fairing.
Yep.
Partial streamlining. There's production classes. I think there's two production classes. There's one is production and then one is modified production.
That's right.
And then there's your classification, which is the special construction. And then obviously there's a breakdown by engine size and fuel by the sound of it. Does that sound about right?
Yep. And because you've got all the same classes apart from the production where you can go standard fuel or gas, they call it, or fuel, which is more ethanol, methanol, alcohol fuels.
So we could quite easily have a go then. We could take one of my bikes, or one of Ed's bikes, let's say, and have a go, couldn't we?
We could take your CRF. We could put a turbo on your CRF and give it a go.
There you go.
That would be quite funny. Is there a 300cc class?
There's classes for everything. I mean, there was two guys running two Vespas there when I was there. 200cc Vespas, and they bored them out to 250s, two strokes, with these tiny little, what are they, like 10-inch, 12-inch tires and wheels, and it looked terrifying. And they were doing like 85 miles an hour.
Must take a long time to do a run.
Wow. My CRF is really fast with me on it downhill, though, I tell you. I break records going downhill with my the extra ballast on board.
With a tailwind.
Getting back to your bike build, did you actually build that chassis yourself? Because that's some impressive trellis framework you've got there.
It was built right here behind me on the workshop bench, yes. Over the years, I haven't honed skills. If I wanted to make something in the workshop, I've just tended to go and buy the equipment and teach myself how to make it. So I bought my TIG welding plant when I needed to make a special exhaust for a Ducati project. I bought the lathe when I was making supercharger lathe shafts for another Ducati project. And then it's just learning by mistakes, really. The frame was made in CAD, and I do not have the skills to do that kind of complicated CAD, but somebody else did it for me. My design, they CAD it up for me. I got a local company who cut all the tubulars out with a laser. And then for me, it was just dressing them up, laying it down like a jigsaw puzzle and welding it all up. It saved me weeks and weeks and weeks doing that way. How much tube did you end up throwing away after you burnt through it? Not much, actually. No, it's thick wall tubing. It was all 2 mil thick tubing, 25% chromalloy tubing. Came out of the UK, flew over here. That's really thick, isn't it? It's all roll cage spec tubing. So it does have a lot of flex, but it's got a lot of strength as well. I'm surprised it's got any. Is the flex just based on the size and the length of it, I guess? Yeah. I mean, even putting it on the bench here and you jack it up, you can actually see slight bit of flex in it once you've got the engine hanging off it. And did you design flex into it or just basically use the same tube throughout? I use the same tube throughout. There's a larger diameter tube at the bottom. I think it's 45 mil tube on the main lower frame rails and 25 mil throughout everything else. I did have a friend do a bit of a fatigue analysis on the design, just to kind of check my fag packet engineering. And it turned out it was fine. It was actually over-engineered, which is a good point, I guess. That's probably quite a nice thought when you're doing just under 200 miles an hour.
I was going to ask if you did any sort of, CFD or FEA or stuff as part of the design process, or whether it was just, from experience and kind of...
It was based on experience, but you'll know yourself, an FEA analysis is not a cheap thing to do.
Guys, you're going to have to tell us what that is.
Finite element analysis.
Thanks, I completely understand it now. What is CFD?
computational fluid dynamics, but I guess for a naked bike class, as long as you've got the frontal area as small as possible, did you pick to do the naked class because you didn't really want to do the body work, or just because you saw these guys had done it and you went, right, I'm going to beat them?
Exactly, it was that. It was like, I want to beat them. I want to get that record they just took. That was the carrot. It was their record was the carrot it was dangling for me. Yeah.
I was interested as to why you picked the Ducati 998 engine, but it sounds like it was literally because you just had one on the floor at home.
Exactly. I watched these guys do it. I mean, if I'm sitting here, I can look on the top of that shelf. There's a 996 motor. If I dig down there's an 1198 motor. There's a land speed broken engine, 998 motor right here. I've got the cylinder heads at my knee. I've got Ducati engines all over the place. So it was purely because I watched that do it and I had an engine lying on the floor doing nothing.
I love this. This is going back to the garagistas of early Formula One days, isn't it? When people are just designing and building their own stuff. This is why it's exciting. Are there any big manufacturers sticking their elbows in and this sort of thing at the moment?
Triumph did for a while with Guy Martin. I believe his YouTube stuff's been relaunched recently with him at Bonneville and the Triumph Streamliner. I think they're there twice, but it was in the same year. But it was several years ago, and nothing really happened to it since. That was a big money project. That was a serious money project, that one. Don't know whatever happened to it.
It's probably more for a bit of, not quick publicity, but throw a bit of cash at it, try and get a few videos out of it, and then maybe they just lose interest.
And I think they realised as well that it wasn't going to be as easy as they maybe first thought it was going to be. And it's not. I mean, I've been there twice now, and you sit here, plan all year, going, oh, that'd be no problem. 200 miles an hour, no problem. And then you actually get in the salt and trying. Okay, that's a big problem.
I've actually got a land speed record. I don't know if you know this, Ed, but I've got the record for fastest 2-up with camping gear down the Autobahn record.
What was your speed for that?
126 miles an hour. It wasn't a mile, I chickened out.
Was that on your 1050?
It was on my 990.
I was going to say, the last time I saw you heading to Europe on that 1050, you had everything and the kitchen sink on the back.
And my wife.
That's what you did. That said, ballast is your friend at Bonneville.
Yeah, it's interesting because one of the things you did was change your wheels because you had an issue with traction. So you put a heavier wheel on.
Last year, we had such a problem with wheel spin. After going back this year and looking at some of the changes we did, we were running far too much boost in the engine as well. So that wasn't helping braking traction or braking clutches. When I designed the bike, and I was still designing it with a track race bike in mind, where add lightness, right? So light OZ wheels from an Aprilia, perfect, that's going to be great. But it wasn't until I got a well bit into the build, realizing that talking to everybody else and understanding it a bit more, realizing that I've maybe made a wrong wheel choice here. And yeah, it just spun everywhere. We had huge wheel spin issues last year. So I made solid wheels, solid aluminium wheels. Got the billet rims made in China, designed my own hubs, got them made them wrong, had to remake them. Because, CAD skills. And I ended up gaining 21 and a half kilos between the front wheel and the back wheel.
Wow, that's a lot of weight to add to wheels.
Yeah, it added 13 kilos in the rear wheel. And then I added another 27 kilos of ballast to it.
Do you think if you'd gone for a steel, an even heavier wheel, that would have helped? Or is there a tipping point where the weight actually then negates the advantage?
I'll be honest, I don't know. I mean, I did a lot of research. And it came back from all these guys in the US who make all these chopper wheels and they'll put them in a CNC machine and cut out various patterns for custom bikes. I found some of the main suppliers in the US where they supplied the billet rims and then realized that they're all getting them all from China. So I went to the suppliers in China and they said, we'll just make you the blank rim. But it's 12 mil thick. So it's going to be heavier than any steel wheel you can get on the market anyway. I had to take some material at the front just because of regulations, but the rear wheel is completely solid. And with a huge hub, I mean, the hubs itself, I think they're 5 kilos, the rear hub, because they're two sides, they're sided. I added a huge amount of weight.
I feel like it wouldn't be an adventure bike podcast without talking about tyres for a little bit. Have you tried running like a Mitch Enduro medium with like a medium soft mousse in it?
You could have done with Nobblies on that soft assault this year, maybe.
There was moments where I was thinking a set of Nobblies would be quite good, actually.
I guess as a semi-serious question, is there much variation in the tyres you run, or is it just a slick tyre and that's what you go with?
I ran treaded tyres last year and I ran slick tyres this year. If you get over 200 miles an hour, they actually state that the tyres have got to be marked not for road use. So, set Michelin Deserts also say not for road use, so I could have used a set of them, I guess, with a mousse.
Probably would have been changing the meter run though.
Yeah, I don't think the Moose would have handled that speed.
But these aren't solid tyres. These are tyres with air in them.
Yeah, the front actually came off my old race bike and the rear came off somebody else's race bike because I wanted the 200 profile, because I wanted the tyre as tall as possible.
Do you play around with the pressures much, or is it just set it and go?
Did last year, because we're having so much issues with wheel spin. This year, you know what, I put in my standard track day pressures and just ran them and never changed them since. They seem to behave, so I never bothered playing with it. But the salt changes, so that's the problem. I mean, the salt traction will change from morning to afternoon. As the sun comes up and the day goes on, moisture comes up through the salt, so you actually get a lower traction coefficient in the afternoon you would in the morning. And even the moon position, because it is in essence a lake bed.
It's tidal.
Yeah, so we were having full moon when we were there as well, so that's going to cause an issue with how much water is getting pulled to the surface.
It's a lot to think about, isn't it?
It's bizarre. It really is the most bizarre surface.
I think one of your videos talked about the track was kind of bumpy and rough at the start and then kind of sloshy at the end as well. And then you talked about moving to the right side of the track to try and get... I mean, I guess before you think about it, you just assume the ground is the ground, it's the salt flats, it's all the same, but that's not the case.
No, not at all. I mean, there's 120 competitors there this year at the same event, and we're all using the same track. That can range from the little Vespas that were there to 350 mile an hour streamliners with twin V8 supercharged engines in them. You know, there's a massive variance of what gets run down there, and it all has an effect to the surface.
And I guess they don't have a set of tractors with graders to go out and grade the track in between motos.
No, sadly not. To be fair to them, they do have space on the track to, if it gets rutted, they can move it left or right 20 or 30 meters. So you can always get fresh salt throughout the week. They didn't move it this year, but they do have the option to do that if they need to.
Oh my God, the thought of ruts at 200 miles an hour is terrifying.
It's entertaining, I'll give you that.
Tell us a little bit more about the bike. Talk us through the bike. We know was it 3.6 metres long? We know it's got a trellis frame. We know it's got a Ducati engine. Talk us through it a little bit more.
I tried to keep it as simple as possible with the design. So it's got an external fuel tank way up at the front to balance out the weight. It's got an external car fuel pump and an external car fuel filter. And again, just as you know, with most motorbikes, the fuel pump is sitting inside the tank. And the last thing I wanted to do if I needed to do something with the fuel pump is pull the tank out, drain fuel, etc., etc., etc. Trying to keep things simple and off-the-shelf items. Engine this year was not standard. It had specially forged pistons for strength, but standard compression because it's obviously running a turbo. The turbo is a Garrett GBC 17250. It's an off-the-shelf Garrett item. Made the exhaust and the inlets to suit it. Custom intercooler to suit it. And the intercooler is massive just because I have the space. If I had the space, why not? It's a way oversized intercooler. But on the Salt, we were seeing intake temps of 35 degrees C. We were seeing water temps of 120 odd degrees C, but at least the air ingoing was cool. Custom radiator, which I built myself with non-standard Ducati water system, just to give it a bit of extra volume. Larger oil cooler repositioned with NACA ducts to get air through the oil cooler as well to keep the oil cool. Straight through exhaust out the turbo. I did used to have end cans, like Ducati end cans, and I was vetoed last year, and we went to straight pipes because nobody could hear the bike. Great looking bike, we can't hear it.
I love that that's the justification for it when absolute peak power is the most important thing. It's like, you got to be able to hear the bike.
To be fair, when I dynoed last year, before we went to the Salt last year, I actually dynoed it with the engine with the twin cans and the straight pipe, and it made zero difference to the power. It's a turbo. Electronic-wise, again, trying to keep it as simple as possible. It's got absolute pressure sensor in the inlet, so we can tell exactly what manifold pressure you're running, manifold temperature. Doesn't have real-time lambda, which in hindsight was a bad thing, and it runs a Microtech ECU, which is fully programmable, linked up to AIM dashboard. Of course, nothing is off the shelf. Everything's made to order and trying to make it all work together.
What about the suspension? Because you have some at the back and none at the front, right?
I have some at the back. The rear swing arm is an Aprilia RSV. There's a story behind that too. I actually had the single-sided swing arm off my old 1098, and I sold it to somebody for his project. And when I decided to do this, I knew he wasn't doing anything with it, but he wouldn't sell it back to me. So somebody had some, it's kind of annoying. Somebody had some Aprilia parts. So I ended up swing arm and Olin suspension, a rear shock from an old Aprilia. The front has zero suspension. The front is a dual fork design from an OAC motorbike in the 1930s.
I tried to work out the front steering and suspension setup because it's a bizarre looking thing, and I was like, there were a few different websites with pictures of the bikes. I was trying to look at it like, how the hell does this thing work?
So the reason behind it is because you can run the twin forks, you don't have your conventional yoke system at the very top of the forks. So you've got two short yokes which go front to back as opposed to across the top. So that means you can actually have your bars halfway down the forks. You don't have to mount them to a yoke at the top, which means you can keep everything really, really low. And I mocked it up because I was a bit skeptical myself, checked it and went, well, that's weird. That's going to be really weird to ride because it's probably going to feel opposite, but I'm sure it'll manage. And then when you ride it, it just feels like a normal bike.
Do you think, though, you said you had it was really bumpy this year. Do you think an amount of suspension at the front might have helped, or would it have been detrimental?
We'll be back after a quick break.
Today's exciting episode is brought to you by Adventure Specs Super Shirt 2.0.
2.0?
Yep, it's a new version. It's got the flow armour, which is a lot more breathable, and yet it's still CE AA rated. So it gives you both impact protection and abrasion resistance.
It's an absolute game changer.
It is actually, because you completely forget you've got it on. The armour's really soft. I even find myself checking to see if I've actually remembered to put it on sometimes.
It still feels wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. But it's the first thing I put on for all motorcycling activities, basically. I even wore it and you mocked me when we were doing some trials practice.
Thank God you were wearing it that day, because I don't think you'd be with us today if you hadn't been wearing it when you got on the trials bike.
It wasn't that bad. It's even been crash tested on an actual human, which I don't think any other garment has ever been tested that way.
They threw a man down a runway wearing one, didn't they?
It was actually quite scary to watch, but he came away unscathed, which is pretty good news.
What do you wear over the top of yours?
Well, you know I'm a bit of a hipster, so it's usually a check shirt and a very long beard.
Just something to hide the coffee stains?
Yes, the very rare blend espressos that I normally drink.
Nice.
So there are sizes for all from small to, I think, triple XL. It's quite stretchy as well, so it'll fit women, and it fits fatties like me too. To get your super shirt, head to adventurespec.com. Right, nobody likes talking about crashing, but if you ride, especially off the beaten path, it's something we all have to think about. As adventure riders, we often find ourselves in remote areas, sometimes with no traffic for miles. And even if you're riding with mates, if you go down in a ditch or behind a rock face, it might take a while before they realise or even find you. And those minutes, they can be life critical. That's where Real Rider comes in. It's the only government-certified automatic crash detection app for motorcyclists with a direct ambulance service connection. If you crash and can't respond, it sends your exact location with medical info straight to emergency services. So help is on the way fast. And yet, we all drop our bikes from time to time. Real Rider knows the difference. With smart features that filter out false alarms, way more reliable than your smartwatch SOS. That's why it's trusted with a direct connection to ambulance services. It works across the UK, Europe, North America, Australia and New Zealand. And beyond crash detection, you also get group ride features, route recording, and most of all, peace of mind. No tracking your speed, no data to insurers, just safety, not snitching. Real Rider Premium for less than the price of a coffee per month. Download it now, ride protected, explore further.
The reason I went with the design I did, and I looked at other people's bikes, including this Swiss team, so they had like a chopper style frame as a starting point. They had a hard tail and they had raked front end. And the way I see it is, if you're looking for, you guys spend a lot of time off road, you need decent rear suspension to make sure you're getting traction to the ground. So that suspension can soak up any bumps and the wheel can travel through all the ruts to give you traction. So I seen rear suspension being quite important, whereas the front just needs to point in the right direction. And the bumps were a problem, but they were a problem because of the rear wheel skipping over the top of them and losing traction, as opposed to bumping all over the place and losing control of the bike.
We should actually talk about the format of the event anyway, because I'm intrigued to know how many runs you get, how long you run for. You talk about qualifying to do another run. How does that all work?
You've got a short course and a long course. In this year's event, they would actually run on the same piece of salt. They would run on the same track. The short course is a 3-mile course where you have a mile run up, a mile measured, and a mile slowdown. And then you have a long course where you have a 2-mile run up. You're measured between the 2-mile and the 3-mile, then the 3-mile and the 4-mile, and then the 4-mile and the 5-mile. So you get 3 bites of the cherry on the long course, which is going to be their fastest average over whichever mile you did that on. To qualify for the long course, you have to go through the 2.25 point at over 175 miles an hour, which we managed on our last run last year.
Is that just for your class, or does each class have a different speed?
All classes, I believe, including cars as well. Cars are the same. And I think the idea is that if you're doing 175 miles just after the 2-mile marker, you can utilize that 5-mile course. I say 5 mile, it's 5 mile with another 3 miles slow down again. So this year we were allowed to run to the full 5 miles every single time. So these bumps that I'm talking about at the 2-mile point, I was just waiting until we were past them and then get to the 3-mile and then start pushing it.
You get up to your max speed by the time you're through the first gate.
Or second or third gate. You can have your measured speed between the 4-mile and the 5-mile.
It'd be interesting to know about the gearbox and the gearing, because watching the bike pull away, it's very, very slow. It looks like you're slipping the clutch to get going. So is it standard gearbox with mad sprockets on, or how does that work?
Standard gearbox, standard as it comes out of the Ducati factory. The standard gearing on that is a 15 front and a 47 rear. And I'm running a 16 front and a 31 rear. And I'm also running a 200 by 60 tire, which gives me the rolling diameter as well. And I used it for weight and for rolling diameter. So it is very tall geared. Theoretical top speed of 238 miles an hour, I think, in the red line. But getting it off the line is a taxing process. It really is. Even with the push start, it's very difficult to get it off the line. And when you do, it either bogs or it wheel spins, and then it wants to spit you off. And it's entertaining if you're watching it, but it's terrifying if you're riding it.
So getting it going is probably, would you say, the hardest bit? And then once you're kind of onto the strip and not feathering the clutch anymore, it's
getting it off the line is always the hardest part. It really is. And it's weird as well, because when you're on a bike, when you're straddling a bike and you've got the seat underneath you and you've got the bars, even if a tall bike, like an adventure bike, and you're on your tiptoes, you've still got a semi amount of control with the bike underneath you. When you're lying flat, it feels like the center of gravity is actually above you. And all you have is the tips of your toes, but they're facing backwards to try and balance yourself. There's no strength in your legs to do it whatsoever. So it's very taxing to get it off the line.
You've left your trainer wheels on, haven't you, for that reason, I guess?
And they were supposed to be just the training wheels. I was going to take them off when I got used to getting it off the line, used to starting riding it, and realized that the one time that the bike kicked sideways on the start line and that training wheel dug into the ground and saved me, they've just stayed on ever since. They're not coming off.
What about safety systems? Presumably you have to have things built into the bike for safety as well. I know you wire lock every single nut and bolt on the bike by the look of things.
Yes. Like any racing, and including racing that you do in Dakar a lot, we've always lock wired a lot of the stuff on that as well, just because of the punishment and everything tends to fall off. You've also got a kill switch in your wrist. So if you do part company with the bike will shut itself off. You'll have a tilt switch for the fuel. So if the bike goes inside, it's going to cut off as well. Braided lines. So all your fuel lines have got to be fireproofed and braided. Caught us out last year. We did braided lines throughout for the fuel lines, and we got failed scrutineering because it didn't have a fireproof sleeve over the top of them. So all the lines have actually, so it's I think it's 6 AN braided line with fiberglass fireproof lining over the top of it.
That must have been a very terrifying moment when you've gone all that way and all that effort to get to scrutineering and to be told, oh, you've not passed.
If you read the rulebook cover to cover and you think, braided lines, they're fireproof. No. Fortunately enough, they did allow us to wrap it with aluminium tape. That was the gimme for last year, but we went more prepared this year.
What about mods to deal with the salt and the corrosion and the getting the salt in your face and things like that?
Last year, the vision and traction were our biggest enemies. The mudguard can only be a certain amount of diameter around the wheel. You've got to have 210 degrees of the wheel showing. So your mudguard, in essence, is quite short. I figured the back of the mudguard wants to be as low as possible to stop the salt coming in board of the bike. But it did mean the mudguard was cut basically at the very uppermost point of the wheel. I didn't think much about it last year when I designed it. But the first run down the silt, all the salt is staying on the tyre, getting thrown out the front of the mudguard, which is the same height as my eyeballs. So the wind is then throwing all the salt straight back in my face, and I couldn't see anything.
Seems fairly obvious when you say it.
Oh, of course. As I said, it was the very first one last year. I went, oh, that's stupid.
Those mudguards are short, so you're not using them as an aerodynamic aid, I guess.
Exactly. This year we basically pulled the mudguard forward and then redesigned the back of it so salt could go in the back of the wheel but didn't go in board of the bike. And what a difference. That made a massive difference. You've still got salt spray kicking around here and there, and you wear snoods so none of it goes up the inside of your helmet. Because when you get salt in your eyes at that speed, it's an issue.
What's it like on the salt flats then when you've got all these other competitors? I think you said there was about 120 competitors this year. Are people generally helpful? Will they come and look at your bike and make recommendations, or is it horribly competitive?
The people make the event. They're fantastic. They'll give you the shirt off their own back. They are so helpful at advice, parts, tools. I've never known a race paddock like it. It's amazing. Everybody wants to see you do well. It's such a great amount of people. It's the people that make me want to come back again and again.
So this is your second year, and we're talking about, obviously, you've been learning things on the way there. What changes did you make from year one to year two, and what changes will you make for the next time you go? Because I'm sure you can't not go again.
Oh, no, we're going again. That's happening. Not next year. I can't do 3 years in the bounce. There's too much engineering changes to be done this year. So last year, we changed the mudguards, which improved our vision. We fitted heavier wheels and we added ballast, which improved our traction, which it did. We added data logging, which gave us a lot more information. And again, it was one of these things we didn't think about at the time, and it was a bit too late. We were kind of down a certain path before we thought it might be a good idea. Bars, we moved the bars in 60 mil both sides just to get less wind resistance because there was a lot of pressure on your shoulders. Changed my helmet to have less vents because I was getting a lot of drag on the back of my helmet. And that did make a huge amount of difference. But then we found that we're now at the limit of the engine because we're going a lot faster than we did last year. And these little Ducati engines, we have found the limit of them. They're not designed for this. Could we break the record on these engines? Yes. But it would have to be 2 perfect scenario runs back to back, which you could chase for years and years.
Because you've basically increased the power of that 998 engine by about 70%, haven't you, or something along those lines?
Yeah, it's 70-something% we've increased it, yeah.
So you've gone from 112 brake horsepower to like 190.
192. And we did that in standard fuel. Although we run race fuel, we did see 190 plus on standard fuel. The race fuel just makes it a bit safer.
You put a turbo on it. Are you polishing ports and things like that, or is that unnecessary on that engine?
When you're throwing that much compression and boost down it, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. Well, I'm saying that. It would. It definitely would. It would make it slightly more reliable, but the amount of heat that it's generating to do that now, and I don't think we noticed it last year. Last year we were doing licensing runs, so we're stepping into it slowly, whereas this year every single run was a fast run. Even the shakedown run was faster than every run we did last year. But you can see that the engine temps, when it gets into that wind pressure and you're asking so much of the engine, the temperature just skyrockets. As soon as you shut off, it just drops right off again. It's the heat that's generated in the engine to try and drive it through that pocket of air. It was never designed to do it.
I guess also the packaging constraints for that kind of bike, it looked like the water radiator you've got is behind the intercooler, which is itself behind you. You can't have the optimum airflow to the radiator, but then there's not really a way to design it differently.
We run NACA ducts down the side of the body, and that run fresh air through the oil cooler, through the intercooler, through the water radiator. We do have a 9-inch fan on the back of the water radiator as well. If you ran like 170 mile an hour pass, No problem. It would keep cool all day long. Was happy with that. It's as soon as you push the engine hard, the temperature just soared. It was just far too much. And we've seen that in the dyno as well here. And we had big fans pointing right at the radiator on the dyno, and it still did it on the dyno. The water jacket, these Ducati engines, just not designed to do what we're asking it to.
You've moved to a different engine for doing it again, but I guess you're still restricted sub 1,000cc and 2-cylinder?
Yes, decision's been made. It's already been kind of modelled already. It was maybe even modelled loosely before we left the Salt. A J6R engine. So the current record was actually set using a J6R engine.
So you're not limited to 2 cylinders?
The FIM you are. Initially, we were trying to run the FIM event. They differentiate 2 cylinders or more. The SCTA, which we ran this year, they don't. It's just 1,000cc regardless. And the SCTA record was set using a J6R engine. The FIM record, the one we were trying to get, that was set at 166 miles an hour, which we did during a licensing run last year.
We laugh in the face of 166 miles an hour.
To be honest, on that land speed bike, it's really not doing much at all. Well, we did 163 with something poking out the side of the engine on the second engine, so don't know what happened to that one yet.
Does generally everyone go for the turbocharger option, or there are many running superchargers or nitrous?
All sorts, or both. The guy who's beside us, he was running a turbo and nitrous Hayabusa. There was another guy just running nitrous in a Hayabusa. There was a guy running old Harleys with just naturally aspirated. It's a mix of all sorts of stuff.
It's lovely when you get a motorsport which still has that kind of variation in different designs.
And the good thing is, if you look at it for the original Swiss bike that they built and Priscilla that I built, they're both exactly the same class, but they look entirely different. To the rule book, they're the same. And that's the beauty of doing this land speed racing, where the rules are open enough that as long as you tick certain criteria, it can look anything you want.
Me and Ed are going to go. Ed's the engineer. I'm the money guy. We're going to get our idiot friend Rory to ride it because he won't notice if it's going too fast. What class is the easiest and the cheapest, do you think? Or is there no such thing? They're all an absolute nightmare because whatever you do, you're pushing the absolute limits.
I've seen... there's a lot of people asking me the same question. Well, could I do it in a 50cc? That's a competitive class. There's a guy out of... I could get this wrong. He's maybe going to listen to this podcast and he's going to give me grief. He's got a 2-stroke and it's a lay flat, very similar design to what I've got. And he's got a variable exhaust manifold on it because it's a 2-stroke, right? On a grip, he can actually change the length of the exhaust on the fly. He's running like 80 odd miles an hour in this 50cc thing. That class is competitive. I guess production would be the cheapest.
We're not going to make a 50cc 2-stroke for Rory. He'd blow it up before we even got out there.
There's a lot of scope to do it. A lot of people will just run what they have and see how close you get to the record.
What have you got then, Clive? What are we turbocharging out your garage?
Well, I've got my old CB125, 1975. That's not running yet. I've got my 1050. I think there's scope for that to improve that performance. CRF, obviously, the 300.
It would be Rory proof. If we put a turbo on a CRF 250, that might be the only thing that Rory wouldn't blow up.
Not so sure. You were allowed to blow engines up on a land speed record, though, aren't you? It's part of the game.
Well, not when I'm the only guy out there putting it together.
I've been twice and I've done it 3 times, so I guess that's the truth.
Did you have just 2 engines this year and you blew them both up?
Blew them both, yeah. Oh. The spare engine... We didn't have time to finish the spare engine, I'm not going to lie. We had issues with time and problems with putting it together. It turns out that the sprag clutch and some of the flywheel gear in the back of it was not standard. So we're having to use the same part in both engines. So we took it with us knowing that there was a big question mark around it. And when we put it in and started up, it was an even bigger question mark, but we ran it anyway. But I did do the whole 3 miles with my finger over the clutch, expecting the worst for the entire time.
It went quite spectacularly, didn't it? Because
Yes.
the first one kind of went pop, but only like a little top end pop, whereas the second one went properly.
Oh, properly pop, but yeah, and there was oil all over my leg, and something that used to be inside is now outside. I just don't know what.
The record you were going for in your class was 192.9 miles an hour. What did you actually do, and what do you hope to do? Not next year, but the year after.
We did one run at 193.2, and that's with us blowing the engine and rolling through the the marker not under power. We still managed to qualify for that record. Bit of a shame, really. With the new design, Priscilla Mark III, with a Suzuki Heart, we'll definitely be looking at 210, something like that.
Are you going to use a new Suzuki engine or one of the old school GSXR blocks? Because they used to have casings like an inch thick and everyone would turbo them.
K7-ish, around that era. The good thing about using the Suzuki is I kind of fell into the whole Ducati thing because I had it and the whole project grew arms and legs before I realised it was probably the wrong choice of engine to do this. The Suzuki engine, everything's off the shelf. Loads of people drag race them. So you can buy exhaust manifolds off the shelf for a turbo. You can buy aluminium plenum chambers, which are pressurized, off the shelf. You can buy forced pistons, conrods, stronger valve springs, all off the shelf. Next day delivery in some places. Whereas for the Ducati, the pistons took 5 months to make and there were one-offs. All the turbo manifolds I had to make myself, the plenum chamber I had to make myself. Everything was a bespoke build. Whereas Suzuki, everything's off the shelf. So it's going to make life a lot easier.
I guess the Ducatis are already sort of fairly highly strung when compared to sort of old GSXR blocks.
Yeah, for sure. To be fair, I went into this thinking it was going to be a one-time, we'll go out there, we'll see if we can set a record, it'll be a bit of fun, and that will be it. I didn't expect to be hooked on land speed racing.
I bet you knew deep down this is going to be what I'm doing for the next 4 or 5 years.
I've got so many different projects, and I really didn't need to have years and years of doing land speed wrecking, but here we go.
When people say they've got 2 kind of project bikes on the go, usually it's like Clive talking about his little CB125 that's in the shed half put together. Not, they've done 2 consecutive years trying to set land speed records in a country halfway across the world.
Being literally the other side of the world, that doesn't help.
There's a lot of logistics to it, isn't there? Because we've talked a lot about the bike and the engineering challenges to kind of get there, but then there's the whole kind of Clive, we both know Carl and Craig trying to get out to do the Dakar next year, and it's only part of the difficulty is actually getting yourself and the bikes and stuff prepared. There's the whole kind of logistical side of it, which is sometimes as big of a headache.
And I guess that's where we have an advantage because we've done a lot of long distance racing already. I mean, we've done Dakar 3 times. To be fair, it is on our doorstep, but it's actually easier and cheaper to do it from Europe because you get the ferry from France. We don't. We've got to get the bikes there and back ourselves. So we've done a lot of desert racing and international, desert challenges a week long, Dakar's 2 weeks. So we've got the experience of going to remote places for racing. So we've actually got all the tools, our pop-up tents, the chairs, the tools. It's all the same stuff we've had at Dakar and Desert Challenge over the years. So we do have that advantage that we are used to being remote and managing the logistical side of it. It just, the environment looks different.
What's the next project? Because you've done a lot of off-road racing, Dakar, land speeds. Like, what's the next thing that I see you look behind at there? So what kind of racing are you going to be doing with that?
So this was supposed to be last year's project because it was only supposed to be going to Bonneville once. On top of that shelf there is an aluminium frame. I'm building a replica YZR 500.
And you're going to take that racing, I take it? Can't just let it sit on a coffee table.
It'll be on track, that's for sure. It's not going to look pretty. Whether we race it's a different story, but yeah. So I'm building a 1990 Wayne Rainey Rep YZR 500. That is the donor bike. That is the frame which was made by Costin Engineering in Australia. It's going to be a long-term project. I've got another Ducati in the house, which is a supercharged 1198 project, which is almost done. I borrowed the ECU and the dash for the land speed bike, so I kind of need to finish that and put it back together again.
You've already started pinching parts from one project to progress the next one. That's a dangerous game.
Because again, we were only supposed to be doing it once. I've always wanted a big 2-stroke project, and as I said, this one's been bubbling away for years and years, just got rattled into land speed racing instead.
Don't let it distract you from the land speed record. I want to see this 210 miles an hour in 27.
It'll happen. Even if I had the funds and the time, I don't think I could do all the engineering in a year.
So that sounds like you've got pretty massive changes. Well, obviously engine and... Would you use the same chassis or are you just going to start from scratch again?
No, use the same. The chassis is proven and it's stable at speed. So I'm happy with the chassis and everything else works on it, right? So chassis, fuel tank, fuel pump, fuel filter, I'll keep. I'll have to redesign the back end of the chassis. I'll lengthen the bottom tubes and then cut out the top. So the engine, the J6R engine will come in from the top down as opposed to the Ducati where it came bottom up. The width-wise, although it's an inline, by the time you have everything else on it, and you lie on top of the bike, it really isn't all that much wider.
Can you get the radiator a little bit wider if you've got that inline kind of blocking the airflow anyway? Just get the radiator and intercooler out.
I'll move them all to different places because I'll have so much more acreage to have a
I want to do this, Clive. Let's do it. Why are we not doing this? We could do it.
I want to do it. I'm desperate to do it. I want to go and do some speedway and then go do some land speed record breaking.
Even if you guys get a chance just to go out and watch it, it's amazing. It really is just amazing.
What team do you actually take out there? There's you, obviously, you've done the design and you also ride the bike. Who else comes out and helps you, and how does that work?
My good lady wife comes out. She's actually American as it is. She's been dragged to all sorts of races over the years. She's been the cook in the desert for all the desert racing we've been done for decades. We dragged her to Isle of Man twice in Valencia and gone to so many other random races across the world. So this one's no different.
She's a definite keeper.
Exactly. Videographer Tom last year, videographer Tim this year, they came out to help. We had guys from the UK, Grant Wagstaff and Lady Faye, last year and this year. We met them in the Isle of Man. We were racing there in 2010, and we did endurance racing with them in the UK years ago. They understand remote racing like Isle of Man. The environment may be different, but you're working remote, you're kind of make and do what you have, and that includes a tent, chairs, how you feed yourself, day-to-day stuff. It's all good experience that way. Jen's sister came over, Jen's good mate came over as well because they're all US based. My father-in-law from Louisiana, he drove up with a barbecue, so we had cookouts in the parking lot of the motel every night. It's just good fun.
See, I told you it'd be good, didn't I? Massive thanks to both Alan and Ed for doing that. I found that incredibly fascinating. And it's really inspired me to have a go. So if anybody's got a few £100,000 sitting around in a drawer, just give me a shout and I'll come and collect it so me and Ed and Rory can have a go. Yeah, that's going to happen. Don't forget to check out Vendetta's YouTube channel. There's some great stuff on there, not just about land speed record breaking, but lots of other stuff too. Alan's doing a video a week at the moment, so it's well worth a look. Vendetta Racing UAE. And finally, a thanks to Milwaukee Tools for supporting Alan and Vendetta Racing for some years now. Sorry, one more thing. There are about 40 tickets left for the film festival, so if you do want to come up to that on the 28th of February next year, make sure you get a ticket fairly soon because they're going quite quickly. Also, if you or anybody else you know has a film they want to submit, films have to be submitted by the end of December. We've got some absolute crackers already submitted. I can guarantee you're going to have a great time, and it is going to be a great festival with lots of time in between to drink beer and have a laugh. I hope you're enjoying these slightly tangential topics as much as I am. I know it's not very trail and adventure-y, but it's a kind of an adventure. Anyway, if you don't like it, don't listen. Start your own fucking podcast. All right, that's it. Love you. See you next time. Thanks for listening. We really do appreciate it. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and if you really appreciate what we do, please consider supporting us on either Patreon or Buy Me a Coffee. Links are available on our website, tampodcast.com, where you can also go to our store, that's a shop in English, and buy some branded stuff. Please keep listening and, more importantly, spreading the word. Right, that's it. Just a final word from one of our sponsors, and we'll see you next time. Are you heading out on an adventure? Whether you're tackling the Tet or hitting the green lanes, don't forget to pack the Pits and Bits Towel Off Body and Hair Wash range. It's the ultimate waterless wash. Just pour it on, rub it into a foam and towel it off. That's it. No water, no rinsing, no fuss. It's lightweight, smells amazing, and most importantly, it gets rid of mud, sweat and odours fast. Perfect for when you're off the beaten track. Stay fresh, go further, and do it all sustainably. Grab yours now at pitsandbits.co.uk, and don't forget to use the code TAMP at checkout for a massive 20% off.